Hello, you're watching New Vision TV News. I am Ruthina Sejo, broadcast from the New Vision newsroom. We look at the news around Uganda, around East Africa, around the world, and later in the bulletin we shall look at our daily Pearl of Africa series and of course a special report at the end of the bulletin. We start off with the news around Uganda, where we look at stories making headlines across the country. Starting off the bulletin, a story that everyone is so talking about. Now, Muslims across the world today celebrated Eid El Fitri. Prayers were held in various mosques across the country. Translated from Arabic as the feast of breaking the fast, Muslims observe the religious holiday by taking part in traditions such as going to the mosque for prayers and donating money to charity and the poor. Ramadan lasts between 29 and 30 days, depending on when the new moon is sighted by local religious authorities. The sighting of the moon means that Eid El Fitri can commence. Last evening, after the sighting of the moon, Uganda Muslim Supreme Council announced the end of Ramadan. The day after the end of Ramadan is Eid Day, which is a public holiday. Now, this year's Eid comes after Mother's Day, which has given Ugandans a long weekend and cut work days of the week by 2. We now take a look at how Muslims have celebrated Eid across the country. We started from Kampala, where the eminence of Mufti of Uganda, Sheikh Shaban Ramadan Mubaje, tens of thousands of Muslims held the national Eid El Fitri prayers at the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council headquarters at Old Kampala. Now, Mubaje congratulated Muslims in Uganda and the world upon successfully completing the holy month of Ramadan and prayed to Allah to reward those who fasted with joys and favors on the Day of Judgment. He used the occasion to pray for continued peace, stability, unity, and understanding of one another in Uganda, East Africa, Africa, the Middle East, and the world at large. The Mufti said, "Let us have total devotion to peaceful coexistence. Let us learn to dialogue as a means of expressing dissatisfaction of any kind." The Mufti particularly called upon Muslims in Uganda to actively take part in building a peaceful and united Ugandan society, noting that our strength and dignity should be achieved and preserved through unity and peaceful coexistence. He expressed concern over the ongoing armed robberies and murders. He strongly condemned such acts as inhuman. Now, in his message, the Mufti also called upon parents to educate children at all costs so that they can fit in society. The Mufti prayed for the President of Uganda, his family, the government, and the entire Ugandan community. We move on to Bundibujo district, where Eid prayers were disorganized by the early morning rain, which made it hard for some people leaving their homes to go for prayers. At Bundibujo main mosque, Imam Abdallah Msinguzi was forced to change the time of prayers from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. The heavy rain caused flooding in most parts of the town. In his message, he asked the Muslim community in the district to embrace peace for the development of the region. Let's move on to Kagadi district, where Sheikh Isaac Semakula, preaching at Muhoro main mosque, called on Muslims to use Eid El Fitri to denounce human rights violations, child abuse, and discrimination. He also denounced land grabbing, lessons, joblessness, jealousness, and corruption, which he said are detrimental in society. He insisted on the need for Muslims to denounce all sorts of ungodly acts but live on more ethical and spiritual life. Moving on to Kakumilo district, Imam Rajab Cheine of Kakumilo Mosque urged the Muslim youth to shun acts of sex promiscuity, drug abuse, and gambling, which he said are leading to poverty, school dropouts, and spreading of HIV/AIDS. Moving on up north from Arua district, now Arua 1 FM, one of Vision Group, is radios, which has large listenership in West Nile, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and parts of Southeast Sudan, rewarded its listeners with gift hampers in celebration of Eid El Fitri. The station manager, Grace Lekuru, appreciated the listeners for tuning to the station that has continued to be the top in the West Nile sub-region. Each hamper contained sugar, rice, cooking oil, sodas and chicken worth 75,000 shillings. Lekuru said it was worth giving back to the Muslim brothers and sisters who have always listened to the station. MB Mabo, a listener, thanked Arua 1 FM for the hampers. However, from Eid El Fitri prayers and celebrations, let us now take a look at more stories making headlines across the country. Come back to the capital, Kampala. Now, according to the latest World Bank Economic Outlook, Uganda's gross domestic product growth rate is projected to rise from 6% in the financial year 2018-2019 to 6.5% in 2019-2020. But the report also projects a slight drop in the financial year 2020-2021 due to the general elections, as anticipated heightened political activity and uncertainty could lead to a drop in investment and economic activity. General elections are scheduled to take place in 2021, but official campaigns begin in September 2020. News from Wakiso District. Now, Apollo Robin Nsibambi, Uganda's longest-serving Prime Minister, was this afternoon laid to rest at Bulletin Church of Uganda, Kasero on Mitiana Road. This is also where his first wife, Rhoda, and other close family relatives, including his father, were buried. Nsibambi's final resting place is part of 88 acres of land that his late father, Simeon Nsibambi, bequeathed to the local church in Buloba. Many will remember Nsibambi for his extraordinary record of public service, work ethic, and a sense of humor. At 78, he succumbed to pulmonary embolism on Tuesday last week at his home in Bulangamengo, Rubaga Division in Kampala. Now we continue with more stories making headlines across the country. From Mbale, Christians were advised to stop amassing wealth beyond what they need. The call was made by Right Reverend Dr. Romanus Urenyi as hundreds of Catholic Christians from Bugisu sub-region who did not travel to Namgongo congregated at St. Denis Sebugwao Catholic Church in Mbale town to celebrate Uganda Martyrs' Day yesterday. Delivering a sermon on the celebration theme, Obey God always and everywhere, at an open-air Holy Mass, the Urenyi called on every Ugandan to make a deliberate contribution towards the development of the country. Father Urenyi cautioned individuals who only think about amassing wealth beyond what they need. He castigated people who boast of stocking wealth for their children and grandchildren to eat and live on, while millions of other children spend a day without a meal. We move into Kabiramaido district. Now, hundreds of Catholic Christians thronged St. Kaloriranga to celebrate Martyrs' Day. The main celebrant of the day, the Vicar General of Soroti Catholic Diocese, Reverend Father Robert Echogu, said there was need for people to work hard. He said if Christians want to live a better life, they need to work hard to attain it. Echogu urged the faithful to maintain their faith and make contributions to the church. Closing off the news around Uganda is a story from Hoima district, where in order to get accurate data and proper monitoring of people living with HIV/AIDS throughout the country, the government is rolling out the electronic medical system in big hospitals and health centers with huge volumes of HIV clients. The system, known as Biometric Client Data System, has already been introduced at Hoima Regional Referral Hospital and Retroviral Therapy Clinic.
It has modern systems for identifying patients. They have what we call electronic medical records, where using a thumbprint you are able to identify a client who has been here previously and who are part of who is within the treatment system. We want to develop and expand that across other clinics as well. We are doing that mainly in the high volume clinics across the country.
We now move on to the news making headlines across the East African region. We started from Kenya, where Kenya has banned fishing activities off the coast near the Somali border over security concerns. Lamu County Commissioner Joseph Kanyeri says all fishermen are prohibited from carrying out their activities in Ras, Kamboni and any other areas past Kiwunga town. All of those lay close to the Kenya-Somalia border. Kenya and Somalia are locked in a border dispute in the Indian Ocean. We move on to Tanzania now. Azor Gwanda, a freelance journalist in Tanzania missing for more than 18 months, tops the latest list of threats to press freedom released by the One Free Press Coalition. The monthly top most urgent list also includes the ongoing case of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, who was killed in October at the Saudi Arabian consulate in Istanbul, Turkey. Away from the news around East Africa, we move on to the news around the world. We go to Britain now. U.S. President Donald Trump today met outgoing Prime Minister Theresa May for trade talks during the state visit in Britain, with protests against him gathering in the streets. After a glittering banquet thrown by Queen Elizabeth II on Monday, the second day for Trump's trip focuses on trade and U.S.-Britain relations. Yesterday, he tweeted that the U.S. is able to offer Britain a big trade deal after it exits the European Union, now which he described as shackles that have confined Britain for 46 years. The president is three-day visit, which will tomorrow turn to D-Day. 75th anniversary commemorations comes at a tricky time for Britain, with May stepping down this Friday after failing to deliver Brexit. Moving on to Australia. Now, Australia's central bank lowered the cost of borrowing for the first time in 3 years today, hoping to extend a record 28-year run without a recession in the face of stiffening economic headwinds. The Reserve Bank of Australia cut rates by 25 basis points to a historical low of 1.25% as a pace of growth slowed to levels not seen since the global financial crisis. News coming in from Japan. Japan called off its search for the F-35A this morning, almost 2 months after the stealth jet crashed into the sea, sparkling a scramble to recover the pilot and secrets on board. Defense Minister Takeshi Iwaya told reporters the search has been halted, but that his teams were still investigating the cause of the crash, adding that F-35 operations in northern Japan had not yet resumed. Let's close off the news around the world from Switzerland. Now, nearly 30 years after staging the first nationwide strike for equal pay, women across Switzerland say they are preparing fresh action to push for wage parity next week. On June 14, 1991, 10 years after equality between the sexes was enshrined in the Swiss constitution, 500,000 women walked out of their workplaces or homes to protest persistent inequalities. 3 decades on, however, unions and rights groups say things have barely improved. They are calling on Swiss women to join a fresh strike again on June 14th to demand more time, more money, and more respect. Women in Switzerland on average still make 20% less than men. That is it for the news around the world, but still to come is news in business. We come back after that short break.